that I wouldn't expect.
Right.
So I just don't open those. And things show up on Doug's appointment calendar that, you know, from people that say, hey, I want to improve your sex life or something, and I know it's not. That's funny. I'm more careful with his than I am with my own. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Judy.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate this.
I'm enjoying it.
For the next 45 to 50 minutes, we're going to be talking about the Enneagram, and I'm going to be asking you questions. And as you know, the Enneagram is a personality system that helps us determine our motivations. And there are 9 different discernible at this point motivations. And so according to your type, will determine what motivates you to do what you do. So what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing, is asking you a series of questions, and at the end, I'll suggest a couple of types for you to look at and see if any of them fit.
Okay.
And so the first question I'm going to be asking you is, give me 3 adjectives that your friends would use to describe you.
Capable, intelligent, helpful.
And give me 3 adjectives that you would use to describe you.
That's a more difficult one. Efficient, assertive, independent.
So, Judy, tell me, how are you your best friend?
I'm pretty aware of my dynamics, and I pay attention to my feelings, and I listen to my inner voice.
And how are you your worst enemy?
When I revert to my my default position, which I try not to, but it's traditional. I grew up with it, and it's kind of a reactive instead of a responsive position.
So how important is it for you to get the job done?
Very.
Can you tell me some more about that?
I am not fond of loose ends. If I'm given a task, I want it to be fairly clear cut. I want to know what is expected of me, and so that I can organize it in my mind and take care of all the aspects of it and complete it within a reasonable time.
So what happens if people slow you down mid-task?
I'm not crazy about interruptions, but I will try to be patient.
So how important is it for you to achieve?
I have achieved a lot already, so it would depend on the situation, I think. I am pleased with what I have achieved in my life. I think there's still more to do, but it's not the intense motivation that it used to be for me.
And the intense motivation, what was that about, to the best of your understanding?
I felt like I had been given many gifts, not the least of which was a very good education and interesting and unusual experiences, and I wanted to make use of those and try to give them back in some way.
So how important is image to you?
Less important than it used to be. It's important to a certain extent, because I think in order to, if you live in a society that, like or culture that we live in today, I think order to succeed in what you're trying to do. And so I think that it's important to meet some of those expectations. I'm not real paranoid about meeting other people's expectations, but I have certain expectations of myself in order to get done what I need to get done.
And so the image that comes with meeting expectations, was image ever a big thing for you?
Oh, yes.
And can you remember enough to tell me what that was about?
When I was younger, image
Yes.
was a big thing, because I grew up in a household where, um, especially my mother was all about what will people think.
What would people think?
Yes.
Did you hear that a lot?
Oh, yes. And of course I bought into it because I didn't know any better. But,
Exactly.
I came to a point in life where it didn't matter so much what people think.
So, how important is recognition for your accomplishments?
Less important than it was. It used to be that when I did things and wasn't recognized, I would feel like a martyr, and I would have a pity party for myself. And now I do what I believe is the right thing to do, and the personal satisfaction is fairly fulfilling. It's always nice to be thanked, but recognition is, I mean, no one could turn it down, but it's not the paramount thing. It's sort of has a lower priority than it used to have.
So what role does success play?
Now,
Well, let's go midlife.
success. There was a place in my midlife where I decided that I wasn't satisfied with life as it was, and so I made some changes which were pretty big changes. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew that what I had was not satisfying, and so I wanted to feel that I was contributing something, and I didn't feel that I was, so I didn't feel successful.
All right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how competitive are you?
More than I'd like to be. More than I'd like to admit. Oh, probably an 8.
Okay.
I don't like to think of myself as a barracuda.
All right. Some people adapt more than do an unusual amount of adapting in different circumstances.
Mhm.
We all adapt to some degree,
Mhm.
but some people really adapt and can justify it in their own minds. Do you ever see yourself doing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
Can you tell me about that?
I used to adapt a lot because I wanted to fit in. And so I squelched my own ideas and feelings in order to go along with the program. I don't do that so much anymore. But on the other hand, I won't insist on having my way. I'm sort of in the middle ground now, I think. I can adapt, but there's certain lines I won't cross.
And do you find yourself, or when you were midlife, did you find yourself seeking recognition?
In midlife,
Yes.
I don't know how to answer that. Inwardly, yes. I wanted to recognize myself as somebody else. Outwardly, it's hard to say. I don't think so.
Do you find yourself worrying about the future?
No, not very much.
And some people are very sensitive to potential harm
Mhm.
wherever they go. Do you think that you might be one of those?
You mean physical harm?
all kinds. They are attuned to danger in all of its forms.
I used to be because I needed in my household growing up to um, scan the horizon all the time.
Mhm.
I was hyper vigilant.
Okay.
I don't do that anymore because I feel now safe. I never did feel safe before.
Okay. So when when the circumstances warrant it, you are careful. But when the circumstances don't warrant it, then you let your guard down appropriately. Is that what you're saying?
There are times when I don't feel that I need to be on guard
Okay.
anymore, and there's probably always that little thing that will, because it's so much a part of my life, the first half of my life, that I will probably have an alarm button that's fairly present, but it doesn't usually keep me from doing the things that I want to do.
Do you make decisions quickly or do you labor over them?
It depends on what the decisions are. Some things are obvious. Some things are just not what I would choose to do. Some things are the right thing to do, and there's not much of a question, but there is a gray area. And so I wouldn't say I labor or fuss for too long, but it depends on what it is and how important it is. But usually I can come to a decision, and sometimes I ask for other people's opinions when I can't figure it out. So
How easily do you trust people?
more now than before. Yeah, I have a history of not being able to trust,
Okay.
but I have been able to let go of a lot of that, which I am delighted about because life is so much nicer.
Okay. Do you ever engage in the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
Tell
Oh,
me
sure.
about it.
Well, when I was growing up, I was a catastrophizer,
Okay.
and so I would always, whenever I perceived a threat, I would always think of the worst case scenario, and I would get pretty much wrapped up in that. And now my vision is broader. I have learned that the things that you fear are not always going to happen, and there are other things, other possibilities.
So you would you would imagine the worst case scenario so that you could protect yourself?
Yes, because I would want to prepare a plan in order to deal with it,
Okay.
in case.
Okay.
I always wanted to be prepared because, as I said, I was very hypervigilant and didn't feel safe. So I always wanted to have a plan.
So you wanted to be able to take care of yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the next question was similar, and how important is it for you to plan things out?
I'm getting a little bolder with that. I can do things without nailing down everything before I start, as long as I have a general idea. Of course, again, it depends on the situation. But often I will start out and I will just assume that I will find my path. And most of the time I do. Which goes to trust issues.
Yes. So what role does authority play in your life?
Now, I don't think, I was very attuned to authority as a kid. I was not rebellious. I was a very good little girl, and I was a very good little wife, and a very good little daughter. But all the authority figures seem to have disappeared. I think when you get to my age, that happens.
Well, we still have policemen. And
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm thinking more on a personal level. Okay. Yeah, I think I would. I would be polite and courteous. I'm not much of a troublemaker exactly, but I may have my own thoughts and do my own thing, but I'm not going to create problems for no reason, so.
So, how do you respond to conflict between you and another person?
But there's where I have to be careful to respond instead of react. I still kind of shoot from the hip, or I tend to. It depends on who the person is, and it depends on what the conflict is. And if we've been over this ground before, then I have less patience for it. But of course, in a counseling situation, yeah, I take it. I have a whole different response to conflict in counseling than I do in my personal life. I assume you're asking about my personal life. Okay. I probably fire back more than I ought to.
And so, what happens for you if things are not harmonious?
Well, I kind of enjoy confrontation up to a point. I'm not afraid of it anymore, at least. I don't shy away from it the way I used to. I don't go along for the sake of peace anymore. But I try to present. I mean, I may shoot from the hip at the beginning, and then I will catch myself, and I will pull back and try to respond instead of react. And I don't mind disharmony. I always feel like there's something to be learned there, so I can do that fine. It may not result the way I want it to, but then that's all right too.
So, do you ever find yourself easily distracted?
I'm sort of in a middle area there. It sort of goes back to the interruption thing. I'm not fond of being interrupted when I'm trying to accomplish something, but sometimes it's necessary, and it's more of a negative than a positive, but I can switch gears.
Would you describe yourself as someone who easily sees all points of view?
I try. I really do try. I have certain beliefs, but I'm trying to see other points of view. That's not something I'm very good at, but I do make a conscious effort now to do that. And I must say I'm not real good at that, but I have to really focus to do that.
So, how accessible is your anger?
Accessible? Oh, I'm good at anger. When I was going through a really rough period in my life, anger was the only thing that kept me afloat. Anger is empowering, and so I used that to keep myself vertical, and I learned how to do that. What I had to do was learn how to do other things besides anger. I'm not angry anymore. I've resolved most of that stuff, but anger is, I'm not afraid of it.
So, am I hearing that you hold your own easily?
I think so. I think so. And I don't mind saying I'm sorry or that I was wrong either. So I don't know. I'm just sort of odd that way.
And so, do you consider yourself as someone who knows what they want easily?
I know what I want usually, but I try not to inflict that on other people. I recognize that other people may not want that, and so usually I'll try to ask, but I know what I want and what I don't want. You know, if you're just talking about me personally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is it like for you, Judy, when you make a mistake?
Which I do with great regularity. It's not the end of the world. I grew up thinking that if you make a mistake, you are a mistake.
Yeah.
Got over that one. So,
Probably the hard way.
yes. It took a long time, but I guess I still feel a little tweaked or a little stunned when I make a mistake, but it's just sort of a superficial thing, and I realize that to be human is to make mistakes, and I will try to rectify it, or I will admit to it. I don't have a problem with that anymore. Thank heavens, because I'd be in deep
making a mistake was a bigger deal than it is
Yeah.
now, how long would it stay with you?
Oh, forever. I would ruminate and I would have these conversations in my head that so many people do. And I might or might not go back and revisit with whoever it was that was involved in the mistake. Sometimes I just held a grudge.
Yeah. So some people have a strong inner critic, and it's quite vocal. What is yours like?
Well, it's gotten kinder to me lately. In the last few years, I'm able to give myself a break. I'm not so strict with myself as I used to be. Um, having grown up in a family that was super critical and narrow-minded, um, that was just the way of the day. Nothing could be said without somebody criticizing you. And so I think I will always have that in my mind. I will always have the criticism. It will be in the back of my head, but I pay no attention, or I'm aware of it. I don't voice it anymore. And immediately when I feel that, I try to sort of say stop and look at the other points of view. I won't be trying to do that until I die, because that's such a habit with me to be critical.
So is this a critical, is this you analyzing what you've done and how you could have done it differently? Is this an inner critic that's criticizing you?
Yeah, a lot of times I can look back and think how I might have done things differently. More before the last 10 years than now.
Yes.
But more in my younger days when I could look back and wish that I had done it differently had I stopped and slowed down and really considered rather than just reacting off the top of my head.
Yeah. So when others are irresponsible, what happens to you?
I said bad words.
It is hard.
I have an extra responsibility, Jean. I was born with it. I'm not particularly fond of it, but yes, I am probably too damn responsible.
Yeah.
So, irresponsibility, repeated irresponsibility annoys me to death.
Yes.
I can forgive it, once or twice and stuff, but if it goes on and on, I'm apt to distance myself from the person or the situation because it just, I don't deal with that very generously.
So what does play look like in your life?
Play? Going to the beach.
Okay.
Yes. With a good book,
Uh-huh.
sitting around with a good friend or a bunch of friends and just sharing off the cuff.
Uh-huh.
Being with my family and my grandchildren.
Uh-huh.
I always say that you should have your grandchildren first. They're so much more fun.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, do you notice what went wrong?
Oh yes, I'm trying to do that with my little spiritual practices. I'm trying to do that Lectio Divina thing, or the examen of consciousness. I'm not really very regular with it, but I do try to kind of summarize my day to myself. I may not do it exactly the way we're supposed to be doing it according to Doug, but I do look back and sort of take stock of my day. There's always something to learn there.
And some people, that's the only thing they think about at the end of the day is everything that they did wrong, but that's not what I'm hearing from you. Yeah.
No.
So for some people, the best is always out of reach. Would that be true for you?
It has been true, but it's no longer true. I sound like two different people talking here. I used to think that I always got my second choice.
Okay.
Whenever I wanted, I got my second choice, and that was okay. I was willing to settle for that.
Okay.
I don't find that to be true anymore, but I don't want so much anymore.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't think I even think about it much that way.
Yeah.
But,
So how comfortable are you with feelings of sadness?
mm, not as comfortable as I am with feelings of anger. I'm still working on that. It was not okay to be sad when I was young.
Mhm.
And so I stomped on those feelings for so long that they still feel a bit foreign to me now.
So what is ordinary like to you?
Ordinary? Ordinary what?
Some people, ordinary period is not acceptable. So I
Oh,
guess
you
the
mean
question.
just an average day?
Yeah,
Okay.
ordinary anything.
Ordinary anything. Sometimes that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a relief from, I've had enough extraordinary. Sometimes an ordinary day or an ordinary meal or it's just peaceful.
That's a good answer. Ordinary is peaceful for you. So what role does beauty play in your life?
Mm. I'm always noticing beauty, but I'm also noticing ugly. The contrast, I guess I make a contrast or I make a judgment that way. I love beautiful music. I love beautiful art. I love beautiful souls. Um, the definition of beauty has expanded for me over the years. It's not just about material things anymore.
So have people ever told you that you're too intense?
I feel like I have been, but I don't know that anyone's ever said that.
Okay, interesting.
Mm.
And do you ever feel like you don't belong?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I felt that a lot.
So, Miss Judy, how good are you at knowing your own needs?
Pretty good.
Can you tell me about it?
For many years I squelched my own needs and I was living other people's lives and it came to a place where that didn't work anymore and so in my 40s my whole life upheaved and changed and it was just totally turned over and I had to relearn or deconstruct and reconstruct and so I am aware of my own needs now. I don't always, I make decisions about when and if, but I think I know what I need now.
So in that reconstructing process, that was something that you had to become good at, is what your needs were. Is that correct?
Yes, I had to recognize that I had needs and that they were valid and
Yeah.
and then that like everybody else, I didn't necessarily deserve to have everything I needed, but at least I needed to know what I needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Some people know what other people need even before they know it. Are you one of those?
I try not to do that because sometimes I make assumptions. I do that too often, and I try to ask before I make an assumption. Sometimes it seems obvious, but especially in a counseling situation, I mean that's where it seems more obvious than not to people who are not very self-aware. But I usually probe a little and ask questions, and even with my own family, if something's going on, I try to remember to say, what is it you need?
How comfortable are you at receiving help?
Not as much as I should be. I am sort of an independent type. I think it's easier for everyone to be on the giving end of help than the receiving.
Yeah.
I don't. I think it makes me somehow feel lesser than. I feel stronger when I am giving help than when I'm receiving. But sometimes it is just, it depends on the person too. People can give you help and make you feel like you're needy, and other people can give you help, and it seems like you're doing them a favor by allowing them to help you, and so some of it has to do with that too. But more than anything, I would say I enjoy being able to be more or less independent.
And how are you with being alone?
I like being alone. I don't mind being with me. I do have some very nice times all by myself. I try to balance being alone. And I am sort of an introvert, and I could isolate. But I try to balance being alone and being with people. It seems to work better for me. Either one makes me crazy, and the other makes me crazier.
When people don't appreciate you, when you have given to them, how does that make you feel?
Indignant.
Can you tell me about it?
It's not as violent as emotion as it used to be. I used to become very self-righteous and indignant if I had done something or put myself out for someone who did not appreciate it. And I think I've sort of gotten a bit philosophical about that. I did it. I try to do it because I think it's the right thing to do, or because I choose to do it. And if they don't appreciate it, then I can let it go. It depends on where I'm coming from when I do it, and I'm coming from a different place now.
So talk to me about control.
I think that's probably one of my afflictive emotions. I think, yes, because of independence, I think that in control, those sort of seem to overlap a little. I like to have control, although I realize that you never, most cases you don't have control, but you have influence. And I'm learning to be able to accept that.
And how does that feel?
A little unfamiliar. Some things, I mean, in everyday life, some things are controllable, and they're little things, but I'm talking about things that really matter. And
right.
Since I live alone and I don't answer to anyone, I can more or less, I'm in charge of me and how I do my life and how I do myself. So it doesn't seem to be much of an issue anymore, but I think if I were challenged, it would be.
So do you consider yourself a person of strong opinions?
I think so, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Injustice makes my blood boil. Even though I'm politically conservative, believe it or not. Unfairness, cruelty, stupidity, repeated stupidity. I can't think of any others.
So have you found yourself in leadership positions in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And what was that like for you?
Fairly heady. I didn't want to get. I've always had. No one would know that seeing me now, but as a younger person, I had a lot of issues with self-confidence, and because I had never tried my wings, I had never had the opportunity, and I felt like I was sort of inadequate for a long time. And so when I had a chance to fly, I really enjoyed it. And I try not to get over my head, and I don't want anything that's really big and long term because then I'll get bored. But yes, having charge of things is it's being in a leadership role. I like that. Yeah, and I like being I mean, I could be an Indian or a chief, either one. Either one suits me okay.
And so, some people are all or nothing.
Mhm.
Whatever they do it all the way. Or they have said everything is excessive in their life.
Mhm.
Was that ever true for you?
Mhm. Oh, yes, oh, yes.
Can you give me an example?
Black and white. I had difficulty seeing the gray. It was either good or bad. Um, I think because of the environment I grew up in, where there was so much judgment and criticism, things were either right or wrong, and I had a hard time discerning a middle ground.
Yeah.
A specific example. Uh, I have to think about that. Well, I know when I came to the place where I realized that I needed to get out of my marriage. It didn't seem to be. I came to the decision slowly, but when I got there, it seemed there was no middle ground. It was either I was going to stay there and be miserable, I was going to get out and see what else I could do with my life, and that seemed a better choice.
So tell me about your energy. What is it like compared to other people?
Gosh, I don't know about other people. I notice that my energy level isn't as, I can't sustain an energy level that I used to be able to sustain. When I was a young mother, I had more energy than there were hours in the day, and now that I'm getting close to 75, I find that I probably have more energy than most people. I'm interested in so much, and that may be why, but I know that I can fade at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I want to sit down, and I don't want to talk to anybody or do anything. So it's not what it used to be, but it's still okay for somebody my age.
Have people ever told you that you were intimidating?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Oh, man. Yes, when I was at the Gestalt Institute learning the Gestalt
Uh-huh.
techniques, and I was told by some of the people that were my practice clients that I was intimidating. I was told by my supervisor once that I was intimidating. I was told by a therapist once that I was intimidating. She
And-
said it as if, but what she meant was, she said, I have a very large persona, is how she put it.
And was this take you by surprise?
Yeah, because at that time, I didn't see myself as, I saw myself, if anything, as smaller than life rather than bigger than life. So I was a little surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I liked it.
Might not have been the thing to tell you.
Maybe not. It got me going.
And so talk to me about justice or injustice. How do you respond to those issues?
Well, I have, I guess, pretty fixed notions about what's just and what's unjust, and recognizing that I sometimes don't have all the facts, I still take a stand.
That doesn't stand in your way, does it?
No, unfortunately.
It's like, I don't understand.
I try not to. I mean, the political climate being what it is, I try to keep my. I don't foist it on other people, but if someone would ask me, I would be quite happy to tell them. But I've learned enough to. I think most of the time, when to keep my mouth shut.
So, is privacy really important to you?
Yes.
Can you tell me about it?
When I was here we go again. When I was growing up, I had no privacy whatsoever. I was never allowed to have a lock on my bedroom door, ever. My parents and other family members would just bust into the room unannounced without asking or anything, and never make any kind of apology, even in the bathroom. I found I didn't know how to verbalize that, or I don't know if I was aware enough to say this is wrong, don't do this, I don't like it. I didn't at least say that. And so when I got to the point where I could have privacy, I relished it. And I do to this day. I mean, there's a public persona and there's a private persona, and I suppose that's common for a lot of people. But when I was little, the only persona I was allowed to have was a public persona, and I was not allowed to have any privacy. So what I did in the bathroom, I had to. I mean, not literally, but
Right.
the outlook, the attitude, the persona I had in my bedroom had to be the persona I had on the street. So,
Right.
and I wasn't aware enough of dynamics to know that, but it made me uncomfortable at some level.
So, you mentioned before that alone time is something that you enjoy. And so, being alone, what I heard you say is that being alone is just as comfortable for you as being with other people, but they just need to be in probably equal amounts to you. So,
However, loneliness has been an issue now. That's a different thing, I think. But
Okay.
loneliness has been an issue for me. It's not so much anymore, but I have gone through agony with that one.
yes. So you had to learn how to maneuver
I
around.
have to tolerate loneliness.
Yeah.
It's not the same as being alone.
Yes.
It's a different thing. But yes, I had to. I guess I was always lonely. I just didn't realize it. And when I realized it, it bugged me.
Yes. Yes. I understand. So would you consider yourself a participator or an observer?
Perhaps more of an observer. I think that's where I tend to fall most likely, because I'm not exactly an extrovert. Um, my general tendency is to observe and then maybe participate, but I don't throw myself into things at the get-go. I just generally don't do that.
So, do most people know only parts of you?
Oh, yes, I think so.
And can you tell me about that?
I would like it if it weren't so.
Mhm.
I would like to be able to be fully me with the people that I love, but I mean, my children, I have twin sons who are 46, and one is married, one is divorced, they each have children, and then I have another son who is 43, and he is married and has children, and none of them, my spiritual journey has become very important to me, and none of them understand that at all. So I don't talk to them about it. But I've tried, but I realize they just aren't there. And it scares them because when I start talking about that, they think I'm talking about dying, and that scares them. I mean,
Sure.
they don't get it. So I just don't.
Sure.
And I don't talk to people who I know aren't on that path either, because well, first of all, it's not relevant to the conversation because they aren't there either. So, I mean, talk about something we can both relate to. But